Up until now, I really didn't have a problem with drinking whiskey out of a container that looks like this versus this. But what happens when a non-whiskey drinker like myself starts taking whiskey more seriously? Will I ever be able to tell the difference between a scotch or a bourbon, or pull out those awesome aromas that all the sommeliers can out of a Glencairn glass? But most importantly, out of 365 days, where will I rank the world's top whiskeys versus the lower ones? Let's find out as Short Guy drinks whiskey. How's it going, everybody? Brother Kimo here with Short Guy Drinks Whiskey. Today we're going to be leaving the United States and heading over to try some Irish whiskey. Alright guys, for our first Irish whiskey, we're going with Jameson. Even if you don't know about whiskey, you've probably heard about Jameson. They put them in all kind of mixed drinks, cocktails, or whatever's. Very tasty from what I understand. I've never had it by itself, so I can't wait to taste this. Now, John Jameson started in 1780. He was a Scotsman that moved up to Ireland with his wife, who had connections in the family with the whiskey business there. So that's kind of interesting from my part to know that, because there's a raging debate over these two countries as to who actually started making whiskey. Then I don't want to hear it. I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. I just want to talk about John Jameson. Let's have a look at the label here. So I know you really can't see it on the larger bottle. Of course, it's going to be a lot easier to see. But there's a Latin inscription down there called Sine Metu, which means without fear. His forefathers fought pirates on the high sea, and they were awarded that title. And that's basically how he proceeded. Sine Metu. That's the company's, one of the company's mission statements, is you just go at it without fear. And back then, you got to think about this. Jameson in the Irish whiskey business, they survived 2 world wars, a temperance movement, prohibition, a fight over if they could be sold in England, where Scots technically took over for that brief amount of time. You had the English taxing them. That's where they came out with this pot still method, or it's half malted barley, half unmalted barley. I'll get to that a little bit later. And a famine. You know, they survived a lot. So without fear, they at one time merged with 3 other manufacturers of Irish whiskey back then, and they survived. And you, of course, have the year of establishment, 1780. But the nice thing here on the bottom is, I know you can't see it, but there are these 2 guys carrying these bales of grain. And back then, 200 pounds each bale, had to carry that up 5 flights of stairs, just signifying the hardworking people that made Jameson what it is today. Another cool thing about Jameson is when they moved their distillery from Bow Street down to Cork, where it is right now, they were able to use a lot of local farmers. So all of their barley comes not more than 50 miles up the road. And like Jim Beam and Jack Daniels, they got that awesome water source right next to their distillery in Cork. Here are some interesting things about Irish whiskey that you're going to see come up over and over again. The first big one, copper pot still. It's the staple of an Irish whiskey. That's how it's made. In fact, that's what this E is doing here. So Scotch uses a column still. These guys use copper pot stills. And it was a way to separate themselves back in the day to say, hey, look it, if you want whiskey done the right way, the slow way, made the tastier way, it's going to be made in a copper pot still. And how can you tell? It's got the letter E in it. So that's what that E is doing there. And copper pot still, a must. Next on the list is triple distillation. I think there are some Irish whiskey companies that do a double distillation, but from what I understand, that 3rd distillation process really smooths it out. Next down here is aged in used oak barrels and sherry barrels. Aged minimum of 3 years in Ireland to be considered an Irish whiskey, of course. Now, Jameson takes it a step further. They go for 4 years, and they age it in both sherry and oak barrels. Lastly, right here, I have the 3 types of Irish whiskey you're most likely going to run into. The first one being pot still whiskey. It's some kind of mixture of malted and unmalted barley. The second one down here is grain, corn, wheat, maize, whichever it's going to be. And the last one, the yummy malt, 100% malted barley. Couple of things about malted barley. So the process that they use to stop it by heating it. Irish whiskey normally uses a kiln with natural gas so that there's no smoke coming through that barley, giving it that smoky flavor. Now over on the Scotch side, they throw them over an open fire so that smoke gets into the barley so that when they make that mash, it's built into that mash. Now, some of them even use peat, which has an extra smoky flavor, and it's supposed to be very, very distinct. So when I get to Scotch, I can't wait to see if I can pull that smoky flavor out of it. And the last thing worth mentioning is a short history lesson about pot still whiskey. Why not make it out of 100% malted barley all the time? Why do you want to go half and half? Well, it used to be 100% malted barley, but the English at that time were taxing the Irish so heavily on malted barley, they basically said, UFA. We're not going to use 100% malted barley. We're going to try to offset that cost by using unmalted barley. Supposedly, by putting these two together, makes for a pretty delicious drink. But enough about that. Let's drink some whiskey. All right, giving it a look here, swirling it around. Just kind of looking at it. It's definitely not a darker amber. It's a light honey color. Let's get it on the nose. There is no oaky smell in here. There is no wood in here at all. And maybe that's because it's been aged in a used oak barrel. But because of that, it smells a lot lighter and a lot sweeter. I still can't pull out any individual flavors like apple or cinnamon. But I think this is going to go down smooth. Let's give it a taste. Oh my God. That's fantastic. 80% proof, low alcohol, no burn. That just filled up my tongue. Whew. Second taste. Even better. Jameson, I think you won me over. And with that, that concludes my review of Jameson's blended whiskey. Super smooth, very tasty, very sweet. And I would recommend this for anybody that's just kind of getting into whiskey because this is very approachable. So guys, if you found this video useful, share it as much as possible. If you liked it, please give me the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. And remember, Okole Moluna. Ooh. Mmm.